Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today we have a question from our friend Rambo. 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 Our Rambo says, Mirko Krokop says that the pound-for-pound champ means nothing. Only heavyweight division matters. Heavyweight division is royal, and every bouncer at a nightclub can beat pound-for-pound champs. What's your take on that? All right, Rambo, first of all, I think a lot of bouncers at nightclubs grossly overestimate their fighting ability. In fact, I know that for a fact. There are some tough guys out there who do that job. And yeah, man, there are some not-so-tough guys out there who feel tough in packs, because that's what bouncers do. They work in groups with other bouncers, right? They got a pack going on. So that's a very different thing than cage fighting. A very different thing. But going back to your question, how much do these different weight classes matter? Combat sports are interesting because they give us the opportunity to see guys in the teeny tiny division go at it. And if all we had was the heavyweight division, if that was all we had in combat sports, man, we would have missed out on so many great fights. So back in the early days of the UFC, it was open weight. Back in the early days of K1, it was heavyweight only, I believe. And there were many memorable fights from those times, but when we saw the shift to weight classes, we saw some really interesting matchups happen. Take, for example, the recent bout between Chinese UFC champion Zhang Weili and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Did I say it right this time? I don't know. My Polish is terrible. But that was a fantastic fight. That was an awesome fight. Most people who watched that fight, regardless of who they thought should have won the decision, they loved that fight. It was this amazing display of athleticism and skill and martial arts and perseverance and the human spirit and all this great stuff from these two relatively small women. If you take two bugs and put them in a jar and shake it up, chances are you're going to see an awesome fight from two tiny little insects. Does that mean that doesn't matter because there are two big elephants out there somewhere going at it? Because there are two lions out there pawing and scratching at each other? No, absolutely not. Now, if your question is, who would win in a fight, the teeny tiny guys or the great big guys? Yeah, most of the time the great big guys in the UFC would beat the smaller guys in the UFC, most of the time. But that's not your question. Your question is, does it matter? Well, man, now we're going into relativism of value. Does it matter to who? Does it matter to the promotion? Of course it matters to the promotion because that's how they make money. You set up interesting and compelling fights in different weight classes so that you can make more money, so you can sell more tickets. And who is the biggest draw in the UFC in the last few years? Who's made the most money in the UFC in the last few years? Was it the biggest guy? Was it a heavyweight? No, actually, it was a smaller guy. A fellow from Ireland named Conor McGregor. Not even close to the biggest guy, but definitely the biggest draw of the last few years. Now, who are the pound-for-pound bests in fighting? Who are these guys? This has been debated a lot. In the UFC, a lot of people have said George St. Pierre is the best. He's the pound-for-pound best. Some people say it's John Jones. Some people still stick to the idea that Fyodor Emelianenko was the greatest pound-for-pound fighter ever. Okay. Whoever you think that was, if we put any of those guys against the best heavyweights of today, what would happen? Well, we don't know. It would be fun to watch. It would be fun to watch that bug fight, man. But ultimately, that's all we all are, a bunch of bugs in a jar. In the great scope of the universe, actually, we're less. We're less than the bugs. We're less than the microbes walking around on the bugs' feet. We're less than the particles of next to nothing on the microbes. We're hoodmites on the universe, man. So this idea that you're royalty because you're slightly larger than the other guy, okay, that works in big-nosed monkey society where the biggest, fattest monkey gets all the girls and is considered the king of the monkeys, while all the other male monkeys with the smaller noses and the smaller bellies go and sit on another tree and they watch from a distance like, oh, I wish I had a big belly like that guy so I could be king of the monkeys. But guess what? We're not monkeys, we're people. And people have different standards, people have different values, and different things matter to people than who has the biggest belly. Supposedly. At least we'd like to think that our values are slightly more complex than that. So we tend to put value on good fights as opposed to simply big people fighting. We can learn a great deal. Man, heavyweights could learn and should learn a great deal from watching smaller guys fight. And they probably can learn a lot more from watching smaller guys fight than they can learn from watching big guys beat up on small guys. So what do you guys think? How much does the heavyweight division matter? I mean, how long has it been since the heavyweight division in the UFC has ever really been that compelling? How about boxing? You know, way back when, the heavyweight division in boxing used to be, that was it, man, that was it. Man, there was this long list of heavyweight champions in boxing, and now, I mean, how excited do people get about those heavyweight fights? I mean, sometimes, yeah, sure, there have been some compelling ones, but most of the time, how about kickboxing? I mean, we got really excited about K1 back in the day, but, I mean, K1 has changed hands. It's not just heavyweight anymore, man. I fought in the first K1 fight in China way back when. First K1 event. It was actually the last fight on the card of the night. But, yeah, that was a featherweight fight. So yeah, times have changed, man. There's room for everybody in fighting. That's one of the things that's so beautiful about it, that's so compelling about it. The fact that if you're a tiny little guy who does not have the genetic propensity to grow a giant skeleton, you can still be a compelling, interesting, awesome, entertaining fighter. And I love that. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.